Like my grandma gave me a $2 bill for my birthday, and you're talking I get $1,000 from Grandpa Trump. Let's back this off a little bit. But
if
no,
you could never say Grandpa Trump again, that'd be great.
Yeah,
that was really weird. I'm not gonna lie, it was really weird. Welcome back to the Financial Illiterates. That's financial as you find it in the dictionary, and ILLITERATES. And this is a very special episode because the world is in a very weird place right now. Andrew thought it was going to be because we had a guest. No, we have a guest. Andrew Katz,
I for real did.
My co-founder at Greenbits, longtime friend, and also like COVID-19 is a thing, so I have a young child next to me. So talk amongst yourselves.
I mean, to be fair, you know, like the weird world was the only thing that got you to the point where like, oh, maybe we'll let Andrew come and talk on the podcast.
I mean, yeah, it basically had to be a situation where the world could actually be potentially ending before we had guests.
That's fair. I am world-ending content.
Anyways, today, so Justin's here also. So it's me, Justin, and Andrew. We were just going to talk about how this worldwide pandemic has changed our lives and particularly our finances, what we did that helped prepare for it, what we might be doing now, and then, you know, just the typical random banter that we like to have here.
That we always have.
Yeah, because we don't like to plan things.
This is a very ad hoc podcast.
Yeah, exactly. So how has this thing changed things for everyone so far? How's everyone dealing with it?
Try not to go crazy. I mean, so I am personally at my in-laws. So we have 5 people in the house, including my 3-year-old daughter. So it's busy, but you know, extra with childcare clothes. It's nice to have extra hands doing that. Also saves me money.
Childcare would be nice.
So, yeah.
Childcare would be nice, right, Jake?
There's a small child in the background. I guess not much has really changed for me right now, other than the fact that I'm working from home all the time, which I'm somewhat used to, and not mad about. I think the only tough thing is I can't go out and see friends when I need a mental break. But for now, it's kind of like business as usual. Things are still have a job, knock on wood. We'll see how things change, if at all, depending how long this goes. But yeah, at least for my job, I'm busier, not any less busy.
Definitely something you take for granted, right? Like there's a lot of people who like don't have jobs because like you have to go into the office, or like people are just like businesses are closing down. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if you're still in the kind of like, I don't know what you're doing now, Justin, but like at least like in like our digital world and stuff, like luckily things keep going, right? And like I was actually talking to my wife yesterday about it, like just like generally with the internet, right? It's like crazy that like we can actually keep going on a lot of this stuff. Like if we didn't have the internet, right, and like being able to keep doing this stuff, like we would like everything would literally just shut down, and I wouldn't be doing anything. We would just be sitting at home.
Yeah. Can you imagine doing this in like the 1930s, 40s, 50s? Like so many things would be closed. A lot of the businesses, like especially my job, is like most of it's online. All of it's online. So I guess that's what I'm up to nowadays. More online work.
Nice.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing for me. Like almost nothing has changed other than the fact that I have kids home all day now, and Kimmy's home all day now. And you feel like you're risking your life just, you know, taking a trip to Lowe's or ordering Chipotle. But otherwise, like my day-to-day is basically the exact same. Like all of my work is done online. Even all of my communication with my friends is done online. Like that's not even weird for me. Like I don't go out and visit my friends. I just talk to you guys on the phone all day.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot more of I've been doing it with friends, like the Zoom happy hours. That's been really popular. And then, you know, like there's more engagement on social media now. People are consuming more content. It's just like, I feel like more and more people's lives are just being forced online, which I don't know if is a bad thing or not.
Dude, I've posted so much on Twitter lately. That's been like a huge saving for me. Like, I feel like I've been way more active in doing that and just through like engaging in that way, even though I didn't get out much in the first place. But I almost feel because of that, like, because like Trey, I work remote and a lot of my day, other than where I'm physically located, has been like pretty much the same stuff. It's just like work from home. I kind of get to work and I do all that. But I've almost been more social since this has happened, just kind of being engaged online and things like that. Not to mention like I don't know about you guys, but like everyone out here, it's like you needed a quarantine for people to like realize, oh, we can go for walks and stuff. Like it's nice outside.
It's crazy.
Wow.
The number of people walking on these streets out here is insane. Like if you drive down them, it's almost like driving like Grand Theft Auto, except you have to dodge the people instead of actively target them.
Dude, same in the Bay
There
Area.
are so
Like,
many
so
people.
many people.
But at the same time, I drive past them. I'm like, guys, that's not social distancing. Like going on a bike ride with 8 of your friends sitting right next to each other. That's not it.
They're starting to crack down in the Bay Area. It's totally fine if you, like Alicia and I went to the park this weekend and walked around, obviously stayed away from people, but there have been reports of people actually getting tickets if, people are congregated in groups of 6 or more.
Oh, wow. That's good.
Police,
well, Spain's got like a whole fine structure in place.
Yeah, because it sounds
I
like
was reading their rules and it was insane.
It sounds like last week the police were focused on making sure non-essential businesses were closed down. And then over the weekend was when I started hearing that police started to turn their focus more on people that were congregating when they should not have been.
Were they actually going into businesses and like going like, hey, you're non-essential, you need to close this down? Like that, I feel like that's what we should be doing. But like I haven't heard about anything around here.
The police chief in San Jose went on TV and called out businesses. He was like, all right, I've got a list here of X number of stores doing this, another X number of stores doing that should be closed entirely.
Dude, he went full DHH on the news. Nice.
I was like, this is actually, it's kind of effective. Then they had news crews like going by and like checking, like following the police officers and stuff like that. So they're getting more serious about it, which I think is necessary at this point.
No, we have to, right? I mean, it's kind of the people taking it seriously. Once everyone starts to take it seriously, then that is going to allow us to like shorten the time that we have to do this stuff. Like the more people like go out and they don't take it seriously and they go and they're not following the guidelines, right, is the longer that the rest of us who are actually following these guidelines have to stay inside because they're out there prolonging it. And so, if we all came together and just kind of did what we were supposed to do, maybe it'd be so much shorter.
It's like, I don't think people realize that there's no vaccine or cure right now. So this is really one of the only things we can do to prevent it from spreading to everyone.
Yeah.
So now I guess this might be a good transition into, while our day-to-day lives have not changed, like the investment side of things, how that has been impacted by, I see Trey doing dad stuff right now, but
dude, I've been scared to look at my 401k. Like I haven't even logged in.
You shouldn't.
I'm gonna do it live.
He's doing it live.
We're gonna find out. And you watch. It's a live reaction.
But something that Trey and I have talked about on previous podcasts is having an emergency fund. And I think that's really the only thing that gives me a lot of comfort in this, regardless of how my job goes or how things go over the next 6 months, like knowing that I do have a bit of a buffer if I need it, like that gives me a lot of comfort in these unknown times. But unfortunately, I know like there's a lot of people that don't have that.
Yeah, no, it's just been absolutely insane in the markets. I think I think there's a lot of people that are probably going to be really struggling outside of like you lost your job or you're living to paycheck and can't afford it. But like, I think there's a whole generation of investors that got started in like this longest bull market of ever and thought they could never lose, and now the market's down 35% as of this morning from all-time highs, and they have no idea what to do. I think the whole rental arbitrage space with Airbnbs is one that I think I want to do more research into and see how things are going there, because I think it's going absolutely horribly. If you don't know about rental arbitrage, basically you rent out a place, then you Airbnb it and you profit the difference basically. But now, I read a post on Reddit the other day. Some guy, he lost $40,000 in annual revenue because of cancellations on Airbnb, and Airbnb was looking at extending out the cancellation date. He was looking at upwards of $75,000, $80,000 in income. Now, if he owns those properties, he might be able to pull that off if he has proper finances, proper emergency funds. But these people that are doing rental arbitrage, now they're stuck with $4,000 a month, $3,000 a month rents that they very likely didn't financially prepare for. And I think we haven't even seen the impact of that yet.
It's so early, right? Like 3 to 6 months from now is, I think, when the other shoe will drop.
Yeah, I mean, even Justin, you and I, like when we're looking at buying rental properties, we were allocating basically three months of rent as an emergency fund. And since this whole thing has started really escalating, now we're factoring in a 6-month emergency fund. But even if you had a 6-month emergency fund, if you only had one property, you might still be in trouble because this thing's realistically probably going to last longer. Like I was watching a video this morning, the average bear market is 1.4 years.
Right. But then I guess that also goes into like the idea of rental properties and, if people lose homes, God forbid, but if people lose homes, they're going to need a place to live. And that's where rental properties are kind of nice.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like how has everyone here set up their finances in a way that has either helped them, hurt them, or otherwise going into this? And anything that you might want to change.
I think I ended up lucky in this case, right? So I just closed on my new house, and part of my loan contingencies was that I had to have 6 months worth of mortgage payments all lined up before they would like even approve me for the loan. So that for me, I have like almost like an emergency fund just out of that kind of set up. And the other thing is that like because I'm not there and I'm living with my in-laws right now, because of the whole virus thing, I'm actually saving on a lot of expenses month to month. And so I ended up pretty lucky through this just out of pure chance. But like, going into the future, I definitely feel like I should put together some like real emergency fund or something. The other thing too, that I feel like I ended up lucky on, and I've been talking with Trey a lot about this, is like after I close on this house, one thing I want to do is really get my finances order in terms of like investments and things like that. And get Trey's pro advice on it and all that. But,
not actually a professional, just for entertainment purposes only.
Well, and that's all I want for my investments is to be entertained. So that works for me. But yeah, so I hadn't done that yet. And so part of where I got lucky again is I don't have much invested outside of my 401k. And so I haven't lost a lot. And so I'm really kind of pure chance lucking out on this thing.
Insert like a Napoleon Dynamite lucky sound effect right there.
Lucky.
We'll do it. We'll do it in post.
My stock portfolio, well, when we started this whole thing, was about $115,000. As of today, it was I think 98,000. I think I've lost about $30,000 through this whole thing, which is a lot. But percentage wise, it's less than the S&P is down. So that's good. 98,000 as of this morning. I'm down 23.66% on all my holdings, down to $30,000, which is crazy to not be too affected by that. But I'm just holding, and with the belief that the American economy will come back and will recover as it always has. And if it doesn't, I mean, money doesn't really matter. But it's been it's been really crazy to watch these markets. I think sort of similarly to you, I was a bit lucky, a bit planned on my situation. So we managed to sell that house at the end of last year. If we wouldn't have sold that house, then I would be solely reliant on the fact that I don't lose my job, which I think is relatively secure through this whole thing because, well, we're at a tech company, we work remotely. It's not a business that I think is going to be heavily impacted, at least to the point of layoffs at our level. But I would be entirely reliant on that. But because we sold that house and then the plans that I made, I actually have about 1 year's of expenses in cash assets, and then about 6 to 9 months now, 6 to 9 lol
Ew.
months of of expenses in liquid stock assets. So I got really lucky from that perspective to have so many liquid assets going into this, and it's given me the opportunity to hopefully capitalize on some of the things that are likely to happen during the next year or so.
Yep. Yeah, I definitely rolled the dice before this. Like I put my usually very liquid emergency fund, which would have just been in like a high interest savings account. I started to put that into a traditional IRA and then the rest just into my investment account. And right now that's definitely biting me in the ass. Now,
Mhm.
I'm kind of at the point now where I'm not really worried about it yet because very much like Trey said, I know we're going to bounce back from this. It just kind of depends on when and how long is it going to take. So I'm not really worried. If I do lose my job, then I can pull money out. If it's still there, I'm down about probably close to Trey's like 30% overall in my portfolio, which hurts, but I know over the long run it'll go back up. But as long as I don't have to pull the money out for an emergency, then I'll be okay. But it's there if I need to pull it out, basically. But my strategy right now is I'm probably just going to stockpile cash in savings accounts for the next 3 to 6 months to replenish that emergency fund, so I'm a little more liquid. But if things start to look good, then I'll probably put maybe 3 months worth of my emergency fund back into the market, since I guess now is a good time to buy. Everything's low.
Yeah, and what's your target in terms of? Well, this is probably a question for both of you. What would be your target in terms of emergency funds?
I've always played the game of 6 months. I always felt, honestly, I never saw this coming, but I
I
always
don't
thought,
think anyone did.
I always thought, like all things equal, whether it was a good market or a bad market, I thought about 6 months would have been enough for me to get back on my feet, find a job, and like really not have to rush and feel stressed about it. I'd like it ideally, in the future, I'd like to get it up to about a year, to be honest.
Yeah, and that's actually where I started this whole thing. I had a year in a high yield savings, and then I started to feel a little weird that I had just so much cash, especially with how the market was performing, right? Like that influenced my decision a lot. So then I took half of that, put it into an investment portfolio, and that was doing wonderfully. I've since just rolled that into my other investment portfolio, and then as the market started to turn more and more red, I even took a month out of that and put it into the market. So I'm sitting at 5 months emergency fund, and I think that's a place that I'm pretty comfortable with. Like maybe I want to bump it up to 6 months, maybe I want to bump it down to 4 months after this. I don't really know, but like that 3 to 6 month range, or 4 to 6 month range, I guess, is really like a good
Yeah.
level for me, especially as the interest rates have gone down and down as the Fed's trying to stimulate the economy, right? Like the yield on these things has gotten crazy low from Justin when you and I started really getting interested in the high yield savings, right? We were looking like what at the peak, like 2.2 something
Yeah.
percent.
Yeah.
And now Ally is again the leader in the space, and they're 1.5, I think. And that's actually like a lot higher than than some of the other guys.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is interesting, right? And when I think about how long I'd want to have some of that emergency fund for, and 6 months seems like a good starting point. I really want to see kind of what happens with a lot of this situation, like how long this thing lasts, right? Because this thing lasts like a year, like people don't follow shit, and it's like okay, and like the economy gets even worse. It's like shit. Well, then I'd want to have something longer than that. And then the other thing is too, I'm really curious to see what happens with the stimulus that they keep talking about, like just putting money in the hands of Americans and things like that. And if that ended up kind of where they remove all the means testing and they give it to everyone, and kind of see what that happens, and that becomes like a thing that the government does in situations like this, or just always be interesting. Which actually, I kind of want to get your guys' take on that. If they did that stimulus and you guys had some extra cash in your pocket, from this whole situation, what would you guys do with that?
I was actually
We
just
were
talking to Justin about
this.
this earlier. I'm planning on putting a bit of this into a YouTube video soon, because I was thinking about that earlier today too. So I was watching CNBC. You know, the details of who gets what and how much and all that stuff is still to be figured out. But the numbers they were talking about was like $2,000 per adult and $1,000 per child. So I'm like, okay, cool. It's like $6,000. How would I invest that money? You know, because we're not living paycheck to paycheck right now,
Mhm.
and I have a job that, like I said, I don't expect to be laid off of. Obviously no one expects to be laid off, but I don't, and it's engineering. I should be able to still find a job reasonably quickly. So I was thinking about how I would use that money, and then I got realizing, why would I use that money? There's a lot of people in the country that are going to be really, really hurting from this, are really, really hurting from this. And I feel like those of us that have the capability to take that money and put it somewhere and not have to use it, we should put it somewhere that's going to help the people that need to use it. So, sorry. Thank you, bud. Okay, you sit down.
He's trying to talk him out of it. He's saying, "Dad,
Yeah,
don't
he's
get the
trying.
money away."
He's like, Dad. Okay, fine with your 2,000, but my 1,000, you better
No.
you better invest that for me.
Yeah, he's
Come
I
on,
have a
like,
list of stuff I want.
Like my
okay?
grandma gave me a $2 bill for my birthday, and you're talking I get $1,000 from Grandpa Trump. Let's back this off a little bit. But
If you
no,
could never say
I
Grandpa Trump again, that'd be great.
Yeah,
Okay?
that was really weird. I'm not gonna lie, it was really weird. So I think what I would do with it, I know it's vanilla chocolate.
That means Trump is his daddy.
What I would
Ugh.
this got weird really quick. What I plan to do with mine is I plan to give it back to people that need it. Whether that's putting it into one of the charities that are helping a lot of people, or, you know, I mean, you guys know there was a lot of stuff that happened at our past company recently, and I can only imagine how some of those people are potentially struggling right now, having lost their jobs recently, right before this whole thing. So I've been trying to do some research and see if there's anyone I can help there. That's how I would plan to use it, as a very long-winded answer.
No, I mean that's the right thing to do, man. Especially like when we're really seeing through situations like this how like a lot of people that are really high up in the federal government are not doing what's needed to help a lot of people out who need the help, like more than us, like who lucked out. We have jobs still and all these things like that. Businesses, small businesses are closing. People who are already struggling before this and now can't go into work, like, and we're not doing enough to help them. It's like this really gives us the opportunity to do that. So
yeah,
that's definitely the right thing.
It's a conversation I know I've had a lot with Justin recently. Is like, wealth is made in downturns like this, but this is, I would say, a somewhat unique downturn in the health effects that it's been having. And I'm like constantly having to check myself on, like, am I making this decision because it's opportunistic and financially good, but maybe questionable morally? Is this the right moral decision? Working with Darkroom, this has been one of the best months that we've ever had, and that's because yes, buddy. That's because most of our customers are professional photographers who've lost all of their jobs, and now they're having to take this, what used to be a secondary income stream, to a primary income stream. And that's why we're having the best month ever, which is a little bit weird, but I think Justin's job is also similar. But we're trying to make decisions now that are obviously good for us in the long term, but we also don't want to be like capitalizing on people's pain. So like balancing that, I think, has been one of the more challenging sort of ethical, moral decisions that I've had through this whole thing.
Well, speaking of Darkroom, I mean, I think you guys, are doing the right thing, and like the way you guys are thinking about how this is affecting things and how you guys are changing your priorities to better help these people who now are struggling because of it, and you guys are trying to build the right thing to kind of help them get through this. And I think that's, if you're in a business where through a time like this you're doing better, because people need you more, that is the right thing to do. Like, okay, cool, well, what can we do with, now that we're helping more people, like what can we do to kind of make their lives better?
Yeah, and that's exactly the conversation I'm having with the two founders. There is let's make these decisions. Like, obviously, the product that we're moving, the feature that we're moving to right now is obviously a highly requested feature. It'll perform really, really well. It'll be really great for us in the long term. But the question we really asked ourselves is, what's the fastest way that we can help the photographers on our platform generate real revenue? We had someone message us in the other day saying that they know a lot of photographers that use darkroom, and they were able to make their rent checks this month because of their online galleries. And that was really powerful for us. And my question to them was, how can we make this happen every month? Right? Because we're looking at potentially 6 months to a year of these event, wedding, concert photographers not being able to make the normal living. How do we at least help them make a normal living, or a livable living at least, through this time? And I think, like, to bring it back a little bit, I feel like we got a little bit sidetracked there. As people that are in these quote unquote like lucky positions, we need to figure out how to use the excess not only to continue to progress ourselves in our ambitions and wealth building, but also balancing that with the moral and ethical side of it, and helping the world and helping us all come out of this better.
Yep.
Wow, that got
very
deep.
Very well put.
Well, I mean, it makes sense, right? Because you think about, like, okay, and I'm talking generally, like, people who are in our position or even better off, right? Like, they get this money or whatever, and they just go, oh, I'm just keeping myself, whatever. Okay, what are you keeping the money for if everything collapses after this, or if it keeps getting worse, right? If you put it back in, you help people out who need it, and and a lot of people do that, and that helps get the economy back, to a good spot, then that's a win for everybody. And you're going to do better for yourself in the long term because of that.
Yeah, exactly. How has this whole thing affected everyone's spending? Either intentionally or unintentionally.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that. So it's, in some ways, I feel like I'm spending less, right? Because I'm not going out. Like, a lot of times, like on the weekends and stuff, like, hey, what do you want to do? Oh, let's go to Target. Let's go buy some stuff, right? Like, okay, we're not doing that. So we're kind of staying inside. But at the same time, I know we've been kind of like, oh, well, we need some stuff. We really want to go to the store. Let's just buy it on Amazon or stuff like that. So we have been spending a little more there. So I almost feel like it kind of a little bit better, but netting out a little bit. There's other things too where I feel like there's some things where it's like, oh, we really need this thing. I really don't want to go to the store, but we're gonna have to pay this markup online to get it to us. But I'd rather spend the money and then not like risk like our health. And so I've been kind of making some trade-offs in that sense where I'm like, I'm willing to spend a little bit more money if that means that my family is a little bit safer.
Yeah. I think I've been spending about the same, if not maybe a little more. And I think this month will be the last month that I spend more, but it's just because like I was sitting on getting my home office stuff set up and purchased, because I thought, initially I was working from home maybe 1-2 days a week, and I just have like a temporary plastic desk from Costco, and like everything's kind of makeshift. But I just recently was like, this is going to last indefinitely as far as I know. So I bought the standing desk that I wanted, and then some other stuff to kind of set up how I'd set up my office otherwise. But I mean, really, it's been like a reallocation of funds. So like previously I used to spend, like I was spending maybe $250 a month on commuting costs. So that I can for sure save now, but I'm spending maybe a little bit more on food because I am doing those delivery services like HelloFresh and Freshly, just to reduce the number of times that we have to go to grocery stores and that kind of stuff to minimize exposure. So I'm kind of like reallocating funds here and there, but I think overall the spending is the same, if not just like a little bit more, to get those things to make being at home all the time a little more comfortable.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and if you ignore the amount that I've been spending on just getting our new house closed and fixed up, I think we've been spending slightly less. We've been, I think, spending slightly more on our grocery budget, but basically nothing on transportation and basically nothing on dining out. So like, we still have like half of our dining out budget left here, and we're like near at the end of the month. And like, I ordered delivery from Chipotle once, and it terrified me and stressed me out. So I will not be doing that again. I'm like, that Chipotle burrito was not worth death. So like we're just not doing that. Kimmy had a similar feeling about that experience, so we're not doing that at all. So we've been doing grocery store, but we relatively can do that like once a week, once every 2 weeks. And yeah, so I think we'll end up probably spending slightly less, but then we bought a fixer upper house, so we're putting more and more money into that. I was never so happy as to be buying a house that I believe was under market value than right in the middle of this whole craziness.
Right.
Yeah. Are you guys going to be able to, this is something you talked with Trey. It was kind of nice to have a house you need to work on during this, because it gives you guys something to do. Are you going to be able to do that soon? I know you're saying.
Yeah, we actually went to the house yesterday and started stripping some wallpaper. The challenge right now is the previous owner of the house, because of this whole thing. Well, that was an epic sound. He's like playing with these containers and made like an alien blasting Earth from space sound. The previous owner, because of this whole thing, the movers that they were going to have there this past weekend to get rid of everything out of the house, all the furniture they didn't sell during the estate sale, they got delayed a week. So the house is still full of furniture that's not ours that they're going to be getting out next week. So we can only do so much right now.
Mm-hmm.
If it gets delayed more, we may end up just having to like move all that furniture ourselves, like to the garage or something like that before we can move in, because we really want to get moved in. But yeah, so it's we can do some of the stuff. The other part is it's a lot of like, it's like older person stuff. So there's like a bunch of china and glass, and so like having the kids run around there it's hard. You got to keep track of them, and yeah, so we're not able to sit there and do as much work as we were hoping to just yet, but I think starting next week we'll be able to. But I'm going to be working from there all day tomorrow, getting like the well system set up and internet set up and all that stuff. So
cool. Do you know, so I can't remember what you guys are planning to do in terms of like a lot of your remodeling and stuff like that. Do you think you're going to have trouble getting people out there to work on it if like all non-essential businesses are closed?
I don't think so. So far we haven't. I think so. The non-essential business thing is something that I've been meaning to do a little bit more research into. I think more what they're talking about is storefronts for the most part. But I think like a lot of these like electricians, plumbers, things like that, like they're individual people, and they're going to be struggling extremely bad for this. And it's going to take like well, I guess this already kind of is an act of God, but a real intense act of God or government or something to get them to not show up. And then on top of it, like if you think about it, plumbing, electrical, like well servicing, like those are actually kind of critical businesses.
Well,
right? Like if I don't get this done, I won't have a livable place to live soon.
In the Bay Area, those guys are still those are essential businesses still. Those guys are still,
and like out here, right? Like if a pipe freezes and bursts, if the plumbers aren't allowed to work, what do you do? So I don't think it's going to be a problem. I think if we start to do a big remodel project, it might be a little tricky, but
yeah, there's like anything in construction or housing, that most of that stuff has stayed open because it's considered essential.
That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, it kind of like you really start to figure out like what really is essential for all these things like that. So even things like car service. So like for me, I have a repair on my car that I've been meaning to do, but like I'm just nervous to drop it off, and then like it takes 7 days, and then a few days from now they're like, oh well, we're closing the shop, and now my car's stuck there, and so I've been kind of like waiting, but I don't know if I wait too long, then it's just like if it's so yeah, it's interesting to figure out what to do.
All right.
So I'm just gonna let this awkward pause continue, and we'll just cut it out real quick.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like this is like the right content to like show what's going on, right? You can't even record a podcast nowadays without getting interrupted by your family at home.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of unrealistic to expect people to be like, everything's back to normal. It's like, it's really not. Nothing.
Mm-hmm. No, this is actually perfect. Yeah, because it's like people's productivity is going to for sure go down. Like in any business that's expecting people to just kind of do like the normal things and like get all their normal work done is you're crazy. It's not going to happen.
Well, it's like the fact that I am busier now, but it's just like it's harder. I guess there'll kind of be like a learning curve is what I'm seeing. Cause like, there's like an adjustment period. So work kind of might go down or productivity might go down, but then you kind of might adjust to it and then productivity will go back up. And then it might just become the norm for however long this is.
Mm-hmm. Well, dude,
But
it's crazy, right? Because it's not even like, because if you just had like, you took everyone who normally works in an office and you put them all remote, right? There's so many things about working remote that people don't like realize. And you have to like really kind of train yourself into focusing and being really good at working remote. And so, okay, now you have a transition where everyone's going remote. Okay, productivity is going to dip for a little bit as people figure that out. Cool. Now you add in some world-ending crises, and like now people can't even focus on that. And so now they're doing remote, never done remote, and now the world's ending. Okay, so you can't focus on that. Okay, that's cool. And now, how about we add more stuff, and then we throw your families always around you to distract you to make it even harder to figure out how to work remote. But yeah, by the way, Bob, we're going to need that report actually sooner, okay? Because it's all digital. We're moving faster, and we need to ship this yesterday.
We're going to need everything now.
Okay, it's got to come now. So, I mean, it's going to be a tough transition for like a lot of people.
And I guess the good things coming out of this is I think people will realize that a lot of jobs can be done remote, and you don't need to be in the office. I think that is a good thing. But the way that this was forced upon companies, I think it's obviously very painful, right? It was like almost overnight where it was like nobody can be in the office again. So now everyone, like I've seen quite a few Instagram, Twitter photos, posts of people's like homemade desk setups where they're just like at the kitchen table and like and that kind of stuff. And it's like that works, if you need to work from home for like a day or two. But I think having that dedicated workspace, like how else are you supposed to get a regular day's worth of work done if you're how can you do it at the kitchen table with kids running around all day?
Oh, you can't. That's kind of like the situation I'm in now. Because if I was in my house, like I didn't move and all this stuff, and I just in my office, I'd be fine. Like I'd close the door, I'd be totally good. But like here at my in-laws, I'm in the studio, which is super quiet and soundproof, which actually works really well. If like Olivia's running and screaming inside, I don't hear anything. It's great. But the problem is, it's like I'm not at a desk. I'm sitting on like a couch, and someone could walk in. And if I'm not here, I'm in the dining room, and then which is literally like the kitchen table situation. And I've tried to do that because I actually want like a surface to sit at. And every 5 minutes, Olivia's like, "Daddy, hey," and she just doesn't get the concept of like I'm working, and that's hard for her because she's home and she's like normally used to seeing when people are home, hey, I can play with you. But it's kind of like, no, you can't play with daddy right now. He's working. You can't play with your grandma right now. She's working. You can't play with mommy right now because we're all working just like in different rooms. And it's like a big adjustment for her to figure that out and be like, oh, okay, I get it. It's like that whole thing.
Yeah. So I think like last week, at least in the Bay Area, last week was the first big week where everyone was like forced to be home. And I think this week and the week after still be like kind of adjustment periods for most people. But I mean, the other thing is I'm hearing people like for the Bay Area, at least when they first said it, I think the shelter in place is intact until like the first week of April. But I've heard some people talking like, oh yeah, everything's going to go back to normal after that. It's like, no,
no, not at all.
There's no way. Like there's no vaccine. I mean, the cases are still.
April's so optimistic.
Yeah, I'm like, it's really not in touch. Like they put that date just arbitrarily. That's going
we're going to reevaluate in April.
Yeah, but the fact that people are like, yeah, we'll just be back in the office pretty soon. It's like, no, I don't think that's going to happen.
No, so like out here, the schools are already kind of closed until May. So that's already like May 4th is like they're saying we're going to stay online and do all this stuff until like May 4th. And then I'm guessing like, okay, if you're already May, why not just like do the rest of the school year? It's like another month. So like already schools are pretty much going, okay, we're going to be closed, or like the actual locations physically closed and do it online until the end of the school year. So all you parents, you have kids at home. So like even if like offices were to reopen, you now like have people that are like, okay, what do I do with my kids? Like all the schools are closed.
Yeah. So.
Hey, look, Trey's back.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
We're still recording. Don't say anything bad.
Yeah. Don't you fucking
Yeah.
swim on this thing and mess it up.
No, I know. Actually, I'm guessing some of that conversation is probably worthwhile to keep in there. Yeah, because life is definitely still not normal and is not going to be for a while. You know, I think these age kids too are even more difficult because they're not babies that just kind of don't move around, but they're also not old enough to have online school.
Yep.
So like Kimmy's having to like entertain them and stuff, and then like on days like today where it's raining all day, you know, normally like that's a safe zone in the middle. You kind of break up the day, let them play outside for a long time, but that doesn't work. And then nap is just a nightmare, which is what we're going through right this minute. And it's just like,
Yeah, dude, nap time's hard because like, especially like on a rainy day like this, whatever. And we had with like Olivia, we can't really do much. Maybe we go outside and we walk and do stuff like that. But she is not tired in the afternoon. Like, so
yeah,
putting her down, it's always been tough.
yeah, even when they are tired, it's just like they just don't want to go down. And then two boys this age with one person is nightmarish. So it's like, yeah, I mean that's definitely been the biggest challenge here is like I have a lot of work that I need to and want to get done also, but at the same time I have to balance helping out upstairs and doing weird hours. Like I'm really glad before all this whole thing I started pushing my wake up time to 4:30 because at least I get those morning hours before anyone's awake. But it's, yeah, I don't know. I'm really curious. Like after, I'm assuming this is going to go on for like 3 months, right? So assume like the status quo continues for 3 months. How do you imagine like feeling whenever everything goes back to quote unquote normal?
Peace. Like, so, I mean, like we talked about, like a lot of our day, right, is the same, right? Except for you now have people around that are, you know, distracting you, not intentionally, not maliciously, but just by nature of people in your house distracting you. Don't yell at me after you hear this podcast, Katie. Just good distraction. So it's like as soon as it goes back to normal, okay, I can take Olivia to school. Katie goes to work, and now I'm kind of home and I can work during the day and then kind of focus. Because like right now, like you said, you have to go help out. Like Katie and I, we have essentially like 3-hour blocks, right? So I watch Olivia when she wakes up, and then there's like a 3-hour block where I'm in right now where I do my thing and Katie watches her, and then there's like 3-hour block where we switch. So I get like a half day's work in what I like normally would, and it's all broken up, which for like software development, I want like a good like 3-4 hour block or something that I can just sit and like code on something like distraction free, and that's hard to find. So just peace and zen is like what I'm looking forward to like after this whole thing.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a little bit weird.
Yeah.
Like I've it's definitely been a challenge having everyone home, but at the same time, like I feel like we haven't seen each other this much ever, and it's been really nice.
That's true. It is nice.
In a lot of ways, it's been like really great to have so much like family time, especially with like, you know, I'm on a more normal work schedule. Kimmy's on like the opposite work schedule. We barely overlap at night. By the time I'm going to bed is about the time she's getting home. She normally works on Saturdays and sometimes a little bit on Sundays. So like really Sundays are like our only day when we're all together. I don't know what it is about the kids in the weekends. They're just like, they're worse. So it's like, I don't know. It's been really great from that side of things. So I think it's going to be weird when things go back to normal.
Yeah, that's a really good point. There's like a lot of positive aspects to this, and that's where like part of me is trying to, in terms of my mindset when I approach this, it's like when I have these times with Olivia and I can't work or whatever, and not being like shit, I got to work or whatever. It's a lot of, you know what, like a lot of people always, we're lucky enough to have employers that or managers that are understanding in this case of like that, you know, it's going to be harder to work. So I'm like, okay, that's going to be fine. I can for a few hours just focus on just, you know, spending time with my daughter, which I don't normally get during the day, and kind of spend that more time. At least that helps, and I'm sure that helps her too, because this whole thing where she's not going to school, she's staying in the same place all the time, and she doesn't understand why. Like, and that's going to be, you know, a positive experience for her coming out. She'll be like, oh, you know what, we had this thing, and it was kind of scary. I look back at it now that I'm an adult, but you know, I really appreciated that, you know, time with my family that I got to have.
How's it been for you with the kids at home, Justin?
It's been pretty easy. The kids have been great. My kids, as in the two cats, they've loved. I think the cats have actually been like, "What the hell are you still doing here?"
Yeah, no, I think my dog really liked having everyone around for a while till he realized no one ever came home. And when we came home is when he always got a treat. So now when someone comes home, he's real aggressive about getting a treat. But yeah, no, it's crazy times. I think we could probably talk for days on this. But I should probably free myself up in case nap time continues to progress downwards. All right, so things are crazy. I think if people want to talk about it, we're overly interested in talking about it. Obviously, we talked about this for almost an hour now. So you can find us in the usual places: Twitter, Trobrock, Gustin Jabriel, and Andrew Katz. What's your Twitter username?
Andrew Katz 00.
Okay, it is Andrew Katz 00.
Cats
And yeah, podcast will be everywhere you find podcasts. Maybe I'll even feel like uploading it to YouTube. It's not like I have anything else to do.
Yeah.
And if you want me back on the podcast, blow their Twitter up and say, "Get Andrew Katz back on the podcast. He's the best guest ever. I'm the only guest ever." But
I think you have been the best guest so far, for sure.
Yeah, you definitely have. Yeah, that reminds me of Gary Vee being on Sarah Dietschy's first podcast. He's like, "Is it weird that no guest will ever be better than your first one?" I always appreciated that.
I mean, that is the case for this. So I'm just saying.
No, but this is very different than our normal podcast. So if you're into this, let us know. You know, we're all quarantined, so it's not like we have anything better to do. Don't tell our bosses. Yeah, so that's it. We will see you guys next time. Be safe, social distance, staying home. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Is it weird that we didn't actually hang out? We just kind of went, yeah, it's over.